Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome. It is Sunday, January 8th. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Stephanie Guadian. Thanks for joining us. Our topic tonight, a hotly contested piece of legislation filed at the Texas Capitol. It is called the Texas Privacy Act. Most people, though, refer to it as the bathroom bill. Lawmakers will decide whether to embrace an issue that caused a national uproar in North Carolina. We're talking about banning transgender people from using the bathroom of their choice. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a top social conservative voice in the state, says the Privacy Protection Act is a top priority for the GOP-controlled legislature, which convenes this coming week. Remember, you can email us your comments and your questions right now to ABC-7 Extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1771 and tweet me at Guadian ABC7 using the hashtag ABC7 Extra. We want to hear from you tonight. Details of the bill were explained at a news conference at the Texas State Capitol. Protesters were also there shouting shame, shame, shame. Reporter Ashley Gordeau has more from Austin.
The sign on the door and who walks through it, now the center of controversy at the Capitol.
Shame! Shame!
As protesters yell outside the Senate chamber,
Martin Luther King said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent on things that matter."
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Senator Lois Colcourse from Brenham, Texas, lay out Senate Bill 6, the Texas Privacy Act, commonly known as the bathroom bill.
I'm filing this legislation not to start a controversy, but to end one.
Colcourse says the bill has three main parts. The first prohibits local governments from adopting ordinances that regulate bathrooms and locker rooms of private businesses. In government buildings and public schools and universities, each dressing room, locker room, and bathroom must be designated for use based on a person's biological sex, and a person must go by the sex listed on their birth certificate. The third section enhances penalties by 1 degree for crimes committed in public dressing rooms, showers, locker rooms, and bathrooms.
Are we going to have bathroom police? No. What this is it allows an individual who feels uncomfortable to report that. And in our schools, if they're violating this, the Attorney General has some measures that can they can penalize the school districts or the cities.
While supporters say the bill is about protecting privacy, opponents argue it discriminates against transgender people.
If we're seriously interested in protecting people and trying to stop predatory behavior, then the target of the legislation should be predators. The target of the legislation should not be transgender people, because transgender people are more likely to be the victims of crime, not the perpetrators of it.
A statewide business coalition counters Texas could lose billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs if it pursues this legislation. Such intervention by the business community is viewed by LGBTQ activists as vital now that chances for gains at the legislative level have diminished. Joining us now, my guest tonight, Adolfo Tejas, the chairman of the El Paso County Republican Party, and Brenda Risch, a board member for the Borderland Rainbow Center for the LGBTQ community. I want to thank you guys very much for being here tonight. Adolfo, I want to start with you. You are in support of this bill. Do you believe that this is going to be passed?
I believe it will be passed. I think this bill was proposed to protect the rights of everybody, not discriminate against everybody or anybody. So I think once this bill is passed, it does protect the people that have the values, that have the principles, that believe that they have modesty and that should be honored and respected. This was not even an issue until the Obama administration in May of 2016 ordered that if you accept Title IX funds, that you have to start allowing people based on what was defined as internal sense of gender or gender identity. So it's not a matter of what you are, it's a matter of what you think or want to be. And if today I want to be one person, I can do what I want. If tomorrow I want to be a different sex, I can do something different. That's not right. That certainly doesn't protect the rights of the majority of the people.
Okay, Brenda, I know you disagree with this. Tell us why.
Well, I think that this legislation is attempting to correct a problem that doesn't exist. There is no known pattern of men entering women's restrooms to commit sexual assault. And the idea that men would suddenly dress as women to do so is a fairly ridiculous idea. There's no research showing that that could happen or would happen, and we don't have credible cases in the literature, the scientific literature regarding this. And I think that the oft overlooked part of it is that this really does discriminate against some people. There are people that do have a very deeply held internal sense of their gender identity not matching their physical body. And if you happen to be a teen at a high school and you're told that there's only one bathroom on the entire campus and the campus is over a mile long, how likely is it that you can actually reasonably use the restroom that's been assigned to you, the nurse's restroom or whatever? So if you can't actually go into the restroom that matches your physical appearance and the way that you're presenting yourself and your identity, you're at a huge amount of risk. I think that the idea that people are going to switch back and forth or willfully use this to disguise some kind of predatory intent is very far-fetched. If that were the case, people would already do that. You know, predators would have already figured this out.
But Adolfo, you really, this is a concern for you. You think this is something that could happen.
You know, this has never been addressed as sexual assault or predatory intent. That's not the focus of this issue. This issue is people's rights, all people's rights, not just one particular population. You know, I'm concerned about my wife, I'm concerned about my sons, I'm concerned about my daughters and my granddaughters. And they have the right to be comfortable when they use the restroom, when they take a shower, when they go into any public facility. And this is providing that right to them. And it's a right for everybody. And I think that's what it does. It's not addressing sexual predators or any other type of predator issue. That's not addressed, and I'm not sure where that comes from, but that's not the issue here. The issue is about personal rights.
Okay.
Actually, that is the justification that's often used for this legislation. When people are asked why they're for it, they say, I'm afraid my granddaughter will be, you know, harassed by a man in the women's restroom. I don't want a man in her restroom. And I think that the fact is that transgender people have been using the bathroom that matches their gender identity and the way that they present for years, and there haven't been problems. In fact, bathrooms are not a known area where people do have issues. Most women feel pretty safe in the bathroom, and in fact, if a woman's upset, one of the first things she does is she goes in the bathroom to, you know, cry or to touch up her makeup or to calm herself. So it's obviously a place that most people feel is pretty safe in a public environment. And I agree that I think it's really important that all Texans' rights are respected and that everyone has the ability to feel safe and can be served. And if you restrict certain people from being able to use the bathroom that is appropriate for them, how can they be comfortable in a public environment? How can they go to the courthouse and use the facilities appropriately if they can't use the restroom that is appropriate for them? Or how can they go to school? I think that, you know, there's a bigger issue here. It's not just about who conforms to someone's idea of who should be in a bathroom. I mean, I'm not an especially masculine looking person, but I have been mistaken as a man walking into the women's restroom at times. And so I think that this is going to cause a lot of scrutiny and pressure on women to look a certain way and to question people and to ask, well, you know, you don't, or should you be in here? Again, my
bathroom police.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think that that causes a lot of pressure, and people end up not using the facilities when they should.
Okay, so we did post this topic on our Facebook site, and so we want to go ahead and go to some of those comments. The first one is from Alberto Cordova, and he says, I don't believe any man should walk into the same restroom as where a female is. There's a woman's restroom and a man's restroom. If you can't figure out what sex you are, then don't go to the restroom. Stupid to all share one restroom all at once. God forbid some man walks into the same restroom my daughter is using. Just no way, plain stupid. Lisa Esparza says, I can't with you people. I've never had a public restroom issue as a child. I was never molested by strangers in a public restroom. I'm usually there to use the facilities, not scope out the other people in the bathroom. Actually, come to think of it, I have seen a man dressed as a woman in the women's restroom at a gay club, and I'm straight and nothing happened to me. One more, this is from Corey Rowan. Men should use the men's room. Females should use the females' restroom. If you were born a male or born a female, that is how God designed you. Deal with it. So you work a lot with the transgender community. Can you help explain for people out here who might not understand what it's like for a transgender person? Many times they feel this from birth, right, or from a young child.
Many people report feeling feelings that they're not in the right body or that they're not the sex that they've been assigned at birth from the time that they first remember from being a small child. It's a different experience for each person. Some people desire to conform more with what they feel like. So if they were born male, they want to change to look and be and present themselves as more female, and some people are not as comfortable doing that because they're afraid of being attacked, they're afraid of hatred and stigma, and the kind of violence that might be perpetrated upon them. So I mean, the world is already a dangerous place for someone who is transgender, and I don't think it's an identity that people would take on lightly as a whim or some kind of joke or to play around. I think this is a very serious issue. And in fact, some people's sense of conflict over their body is so deep that they're actually diagnosed with gender dysmorphia, which means that they really can't identify with the gender that they've been assigned, that they just don't feel okay. They're depressed, they're anxious, they're suicidal. And I think that level of distress indicates this is a very serious issue. You know, this is not a phase, it's not a joke, it's not a whim. And I think, you know, if you sit down and talk with folks who are transgender, you learn to understand more about their experience and what they're feeling, and that this is a valid human experience, just like any other experience. And I think that being able to use the restroom if you happen to be in the situation of being transgender should be just as important as if you're white or black or brown or red or Muslim or Christian. I don't think there should be any caveats about who can go in a bathroom.
Well, Texas is certainly not the first state to try to do something like this. North Carolina passed a similar bill and faced boycotts, potentially billions of dollars lost in state revenue after passing its own version last year. Adolfo, are you worried at all that the state of Texas could face similar boycotts?
Am I worried at all about it? No. Do I think it might happen? Yes. But the question is, are we going to sell our values and our principles for financial reasons? When I was reading what the Democratic Party commented on, that, you know, they're calling this the whatever it is, the $8.5 billion bill, you know, they're putting the value that we might lose, the upper end, the most excessive end of what the state might lose. They're putting principles, values, modesty, personal perspectives, people's rights, all people's rights, not just one specific group. They're putting a monetary value on it, and they're saying that we need to accept it because it's going to cost us money. I think we should do what's right, and this right is not based on how many dollars we're going to make or we lose. So in my mind, I don't think it'll happen. I think Texas is a big enough state, it's got a big enough economy, it's got a big enough buying power that if people want to discriminate against Texas because they have a bill that gives the rights to everybody, I think Texas is prepared to financially support what we think is right, and it's not going to hurt Texas in the long run. I think it'll help it.
Okay, so we have been asking folks to call into the show, and we do have our first caller. Go ahead, caller.
I think this whole deal should be put up to a vote the next time we have an election, or next time we have a vote, and the citizens should vote for it, not the legislatures in Congress.
All right, Brenda, what do you think about that?
I think that would be a way to ensure that the people have a voice. I think that, you know, legislators are supposed to represent their constituents, but sometimes party politics get in the way of what actual constituents think. So I don't know. It might not be a bad idea to let the people speak for themselves.
Adolfo?
I think this is a states' rights issue, not a federal government issue, and I think a state should address it on a state-by-state basis. The federal government over the last 8 years has been taking away states' rights a little bit at a time, and I think there's a movement to change that, and I think this is one of those issues that I think it should belong to the state, and I think the state representatives should be the one that make the decision. And the state of Texas, the people that are up there making decisions for us, because we elected them, they generally look at this as something that's important to our state to have a bill like this. So I agree. And if they want to bring it to the state and have citizens vote on it, I think that would be okay too. I believe in Texas. We are a conservative group. We believe in individual rights, and this is an individual right issue that belongs to the majority of the people. that would vote, I think, in favor of something like this.
Well, the legislators will be taking a look at it this week. Stay with us. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, reaction to the so-called bathroom bill from an El Paso transgender woman, the reason she calls this legislation dangerous. And remember, if you want to share your comment or question for one of our guests, you can call our comment line at 915-496-1771. You can also email us right now, ABC7Extra at KVIA.com, or tweet me. You are watching ABC7 Extra, where news comes first. And welcome back. The Texas Privacy Act requires all residents to use the bathroom or locker room according to the gender on their birth certificates. It also bans local governments from passing ordinances designed to protect gay rights in public restrooms and other intimate settings. I spoke to a transgender El Paso woman who believes the bill would actually put her in danger.
I've been sexually attacked before. So that kind of gives me anxiety, thinking that I have to use a restroom that I'm not comfortable with.
China Fierro started her transition into a woman as a teen.
As me, I identify as a female. I use a female restroom, you know?
Have you ever been given a hard time for doing that?
No, never.
That could change if the Texas Privacy Act passes. The bill will allow anyone to lodge complaints upon seeing something in public restrooms that makes them uncomfortable.
It protects children in public school and everyone who uses a public restroom.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick unveiled the bill that would ban transgender people from using the bathroom of their choice.
You can mark today as the day that Texas is drawing a line in the sand and saying no. The privacy and safety of Texans is our first priority, not political correctness.
If passed, private businesses would be allowed to set their own rules.
No government will tell business what their bathroom policy or locker room policy, if it applies, or shower policy, if it applies. No government will be allowed to tell business what to do.
It's ridiculous. I'm worried, of course, and what's going to happen. I think there will be more of a crime, more reports of sexual crimes. Because really, I never heard of a transgender person doing anything to anybody in a restroom and being reported. I mean, people should really do their homework and see if that's true or not.
Okay.
And joining us again, my guest tonight, Adolfo Tejas, the chairman of the El Paso County Republican Party, and also Brenda Risch, a board member of the Borderland Rainbow Center for the LGBTQ community. Thank you both again for being with us tonight. Before we get going again, I do want to read a tweet that was just sent to me from Cranky Easily Annoyed. It says, if transgendered people have been using whatever restroom they want for years, why do we need a law allowing it? And we all talk that it is interesting that this really hasn't been a news story or an issue until recently. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, but, okay. In May of last year, the Obama administration, through the Department of Education and the Department of Justice, issued a rule stating that if you receive Title IX funds, funds that go to schools, to colleges, to universities, if you receive Title IX funds, you have to allow a person, when they have an internal sense of gender or a gender identity, to use whatever restroom they deem appropriate for their gender identity. That's what made this an issue. And again, I'm not sure I understand why at that point in time it was determined that Title IX funds could be withheld unless you allow people in schools, and this addresses all schools, not just colleges and universities, grade schools, middle schools, high schools. So if you're going to allow kids in high school, guys to go into girls' restrooms, girls to go into guys' restrooms, because I believe I'm a female today or I believe I'm a male today, that's what caused it to be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. But because of something that occurred at the national level, and it should not have been a national issue because it's a states' rights issue. If they would have left it alone at the national level, it would not be an issue today.
Brenda, what do you think? Was this something that needed to be addressed by the government?
Yes, it absolutely needed to be addressed. And the reason it's linked to Title IX funding is, if you recall, Title IX is about equal treatment of both sexes, right? And gender identity and gender presentation is linked to sex and the actual and perceived sex of someone's body, right? So that's why this issue is linked to Title IX funding. You know, so if you don't allow people equal access and equal opportunity, then you are violating Title IX. And that should then address all institutions that receive that funding. And I think that not being able to access a bathroom in a comfortable manner it impairs your ability to learn and your physical health as well.
Let's talk about that, because you've mentioned that.
Let me respond to that.
Well, actually, I want to say one thing about the states' rights issue, because you've said this twice now. And actually, I believe this is not just a states' right. This is a federal issue, because this is an issue of discrimination, and it's about equity and equal treatment. This is not about you know, some kind of whimsical, today I feel like a girl. I don't think anybody would be convinced by that argument by a 14-year-old child. I think that this is about people that have a deeply held sense that they are not comfortable in the bathroom that someone else thinks they should be in, and they're dressing and conforming and presenting as a sex other than what their body was born with. This is not a whimsical kind of action, and that's not what the law would allow. And my compatriot here keeps saying that, like, today I think I'm a girl, so I'll go into the girls' bathroom, like, opportunistically. But that's not what this is meant to cover.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree that's not what it's meant to cover, but that's what it does allow. But Title IX talks about sex discrimination, and it specifically talks males and females. It doesn't talk about a transgender or what you think you might be. It talks about sex discrimination against males or females. And I want that clear. There's nothing in there that starts splitting it between any other type of classification. So when we talk about Title IX, I think it's been determined or defined differently than what it states and what the courts, how they've defined it in the past. And as it relates to 14-year-olds, this just doesn't apply to 14-year-olds. This applies to 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds when they're in a school, when they're in university, when they're wherever they happen to be. It applies to everybody. And that's what's important, because it's the rights of all people that are being addressed here and that are being protected, again, because of something that occurred at the national level, which this doesn't belong there.
Okay, let's go ahead and take another caller. We've asked people to call in and give us their thoughts. Go ahead, caller.
Transgenders didn't just happen overnight. Transgenders have been around for quite some time now. So it hasn't never been a problem back then, so I don't see why it's such a big problem now. I say we leave things the way they are, and you know, why go through all the fuss of having these bathrooms made? I feel that it's going to cause more problems, actually. And people that are transgender going into a male bathroom, if she is a male, if he is a male, dressed like a female, could probably be attacked in that manner. So I just say leave things the way they are.
All right, well, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate it. Let's talk about the people who are transgender, and if they do feel uncomfortable going into a bathroom, you know, that they're supposed to go into. Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that they can face.
Well, I mean, I think the challenges are myriad. I mean, as the caller mentioned, if you happen to be male to female and you're presenting as female, you were born biologically male, you're presenting as female and you're dressed as a female, and you try to go into the quote-unquote men's bathroom, I would think that you would be harassed or potentially harmed, because you would be considered an intruder, or you would be considered gay, or you might have homophobia as well as transphobia acted upon your body. Mm-hmm. And I think that just incites people who are bigoted and who are maybe not in control of their temper to act out. And we don't need any incitement for people to act out. We don't need it to engage multiple opportunities for that to happen. I mean, there are examples too of situations where schools have, I have a dear friend whose child was born male and is a girl, and she wanted to use the girls' restroom and the school would not allow her to. And at the time, this young person was still dressing as male and had an ambiguous name that could be either male or female. and was trying to use the boys' restroom, and the boys kept insisting, "You're a girl, you're a girl, you're a girl, get out of our bathroom." And they actually assaulted the young child, who was 9 years old, and pulled this child's pants off because they wanted to prove that she was a girl. And when they saw that she was physically male, they freaked out and started assaulting this child. So I think that, this is the kind of situation that people might end up in. The child, the girls would be much less likely to do something that aggressive, and there was no problem when the child had used the female restroom. The girls had no problem with it. It was the school that started to freak out because of school board issues and parents who didn't understand and hadn't educated themselves and hadn't thought about it.
So when I interviewed China late last week, she mentioned that when she was first transitioning as a teen, that she felt very uncomfortable and just would avoid bathrooms.
Yes.
But that can cause some medical complications.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I had spoken and mentioned earlier when we were chatting that there are many transgender people who've experienced having delay using the bathroom so long that they end up with urinary tract infections, kidney infections, kidney stones, the fear, like not drinking at all during the entire school day and being completely dehydrated because they're afraid they'll have to use the restroom. And again, that's obviously not what our medical professionals advise for young people or for anyone, right? Like if you feel you can't drink a bottle of water because you might have to use the restroom, you're obviously not able to stay hydrated in a desert, right? We live in a very dry environment.
Okay,
so,
I know you guys have lots more to say. Got to get a quick break in, and we're also going to have more Facebook comments when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We want to give Adolfo a chance to respond to what Brenda just said.
Yeah, Brenda raised some questions about people being harassed, and I think that's unacceptable. I believe we need to accept all people, how they are, what they believe they are. However, I believe that on both sides of the fence, not just as relates to one. We are always going to have bigoted people that are not going to accept other people and do what's inappropriate. And just because we have a minority of the people that do that, there's laws to protect the other side, and those laws need to be enforced. They do not need to be left alone. And I just wanted that pointed out, because a bill like this, because of what happened at the national level, is required to protect my rights, to protect the rights of the people that have other type of reaction to this thing. And if somebody discriminates against a person because of what they're like or who they are or what they believe, and I believe that relates to religious, ethnic background, anything, that's inappropriate. That needs to stop. Those people need to be punished. But you don't eliminate the rights of other people to protect the rights of a majority. You just enforce the law as they are today.
All right, so we want to get some more Facebook comments. We posted this on Facebook and asked people what they thought. The first one is Nade Lopez. I believe if you look like a woman, no matter if you were born a man, you should be allowed to use the women's restroom, and vice versa. If you look like a man and were born a woman, you should use the men's restroom. Jean Young, this could give pedophiles the idea to dress as another just to get into a bathroom to possibly hurt their prey. It is wrong. Alyssa Haynes, it doesn't bother me at all. I am not afraid of transgender people. I am more afraid of the normal-looking men who use the men's room because statistics show they're more likely to be rapists and pedophiles. Again, Brenda, you say this is a solution for a problem that just doesn't exist?
Yeah, and I think that last comment kind of speaks to that, you know, the statistics show that the vast majority of child molesters, pedophiles, are male and white, actually, and straight. Actually, if you think about orientation as part of that factor. And I think that in terms of bathrooms, you know, women's restrooms have not been a hotspot of danger. In fact, the only group that's really at risk in bathrooms on a consistent basis is young boys in men's rooms. So that's actually, if there's concern about privacy or danger or rights being violated in a bathroom, they should be looking at men's rooms more than women's restrooms, because that's where there's actual crimes happening more often that are reported, that are documented, that have been studied. The idea that a predator might adopt this as a way to get at a victim, I think that most predators already have their methods, and if they were going to do this, they've already done it. And I think it's obviously not reported as a giant trend. The FBI has never talked about this as an MO that's common. I just don't think it's very likely that's going to happen. It doesn't fit with the psychology of that kind of offender. In terms of protecting everyone's rights and the rights of the majority, I think it's everyone's human right to be able to use the bathroom that they feel comfortable with, and to be able to do that without pressure or fear of retribution or fear of being questioned upon entering the restroom. And like I said, it could be very uncomfortable for people that are androgynous to go into the women's restroom, even if they were born female, because people are going to think that they don't belong there. And that actually, that kind of experience has escalated in the past few years because of the talk about these kinds of bathroom policing bills. And I think that, you know, the comments have been made that this is not about predatory behavior or about sexual assault, but it's very clear that when they talk about the consequences, it's about prosecuting people who violate some kind of law within the bathroom. So what would that be but robbery, assault, sexual assault? It would have to be some kind of you know, crime against someone, right? Probably not just vandalism. So yeah, it is part of the quote-unquote justification for this. And what would happen to women going into the men's room? Would they be equally prosecuted as a man, a born male, going into
well, I think that is certainly something we're going to find out more about this week when the legislators meet. We are just about out of time, but Adolfo, I want to give you an opportunity. Final thoughts.
Okay, we keep bringing this up as pedophiles and criminals and things like that, and in my mind, it's a very different issue. The issue is the rights of what I think is the majority of the people in this country and in this state. I'm not prepared to go into a woman's restroom and use the restroom. I think that would be inappropriate. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be comfortable doing that. You know, and that's what it opens up of people that say, it doesn't matter to me, I'm going to go wherever I want. What's important is that, you know, I'm a modest person. I think the majority of the people are. We have values, we have principles. The proposed issue at the federal level violates my rights. This law protects my rights, and that's what it's all about, is protecting the rights of people. And maybe the majority, but it's still protecting the rights of the people.
And we will have to leave it there, but certainly this is a story that we're going to be following all this week. Again, thank you, both of you, for staying with us tonight and being on the show. And thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Guadian. This has been ABC 7 Extra. Have a great night and a great week ahead.